Good evening. It's great to see you all. Dear President Huri, guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to welcome you to tonight's event. Welcome to this special occasion. My name, by the way, is Zahir Dawi. I'm the provost here at AUB. We're welcoming tonight dear guests, Ann Kerr and Kim Ghattas, in a conversation about Lebanon, AUB, friendship, war, and the stories we carry. Before we begin, I want to note that this event is being filmed and live streamed. I also want to share a brief introduction of our both discussants tonight. As the saying goes, they need no introductions. So Ann Kerr Adams is a distinguished educator, civic leader, an author devoted to advancing peace and global understanding. A native of California, Ann Kerr spent more than 15 years living, studying, and teaching in the Middle East. Notable part of that was in Lebanon and at AUB. A former student of AUB, she earned her BA in education from Occidental College in 1956 and her MA in applied linguistics from the American University in Cairo in 1981, where she later taught English. She's coordinator of the Visiting Fulbright Scholars Program at UCLA and teaches in its International Institute. And she's the author of 2 books. The first one is Come With Me from Lebanon, which will be the highlight of tonight's conversation. And the second one is Painting the Middle East. She served on the AUB Board of Trustees between 1984 and 2010, and is currently a trustee emerita. She also serves on the advisory board of the Rand Center for Middle East Public Policy, and is a founding member and past chair of the Leadership Council of the Churches for Middle East Peace. She is the widow of late AUB President Malcolm Kerr, and mother of 4, Susie, John, and Ro, and the famous NBA coach, Steve Kerr. Kim Ghattas is an award-winning journalist, author, and analyst of the Middle East, international affairs, and U.S. foreign policy. She is an opinion writer for the Financial Times and the Atlantic magazine. Born in Beirut, Ghattas received her BA in political science from AUB in 1999 and was a BBC correspondent for 20 years, covering the Middle East and then the U.S. State Department. While at the BBC, she won an Emmy for international news coverage. She's the author of 3 books. The third one is forthcoming. The first book was published, her second book actually was published in 2020, called Black Wave, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the 40-year rivalry that unraveled culture, religion, and collective memory in the Middle East. New York Times 100 Notable Books of 2020, and The Secretary, A Journey with Hillary Clinton from Beirut to the Heart of American Power, which was published back in 2013. She has a forthcoming book in the making, which is titled The Best Kind of American, a true story of murder, war, and America's undoing in the Middle East. And that book talks about the 1980s era and the assassination of former President late Ann Kerr. So it's very much relates to the scope of tonight's discussion. In 2024, she was listed among the top 50 next thought leaders by the Washington Post, and she has served on the board of trustees of AUB and serves on the board of the Center for Global Pluralism and the advisory board of the Atlas of Impunity. Before I give the floor to Ann and Kim, I want to note that I have read your book and multiple times, Come With Me from Lebanon. And I looked at it again today in the morning. I was informed yesterday night that I have to be the MC, so I thought I need to prepare a bit. Thanks, Jen. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be doing this. And sifting through the book's table of contents, you would read the terms Lebanon, West and East, decisions, discovery, journeys. You would read the terms fears and hopes, dreams and goals. Albert Horani, in his foreword to the book, actually the first sentence he wrote was, "This deeply moving book is the story of a love, or rather of two kinds of love, closely intertwined." And I'm sure tonight's event will be a conversation of love. Can't wait to listen to it. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Zahir, for this introduction. It's truly my pleasure and honor to be here, and it's great to welcome all of you and to see a room full of friends of Anne and of ours. And the one title missing from Zahir's introduction of my biography is the title Friend of Ann Kerr, which is truly been one of my favorite roles over the last 10 years as our friendship has grown from being both on the board of trustees to then me embarking on this next book project, which brought us so close and where we visited often, you in Lebanon, of course, and me visiting you in California. And it has been a journey in time. It has been a journey across generations and across countries and oceans. But I want to start, for those who may not have read the book or read it a long time or who don't know you that well, I want to start with the beginning, and we'll go through time a little bit and speak of some themes, and we will have time at the end for questions from the audience. I want to start in 1954, when you get on a ship via the Netherlands to travel to Lebanon for your junior year abroad. What on earth possessed you? And how did your parents let you go this far?
Well, this,
Yes.
okay. I first of all should say to my parents, wherever they may be, that I can't believe now that they let me come out.
72 years ago, I mean, it's a lifetime, yeah.
That's true. However, they had made a journey from Nova Scotia, Canada to live in California. Is this okay? Can you all hear me? Okay. Yes, so when I thought about it, writing my book, I thought, my gosh, they let me go. You know, letters took quite a while to go back and forth. They were very open-minded to let me come. I came actually just out of adventure. I wanted to go to India, and they suggested I go to Europe, and I thought Europe didn't sound as interesting as someplace else, and so the minister of our church in Santa Monica actually had been to AUB and thought that this would be an excellent place. He recommended it highly. It was similar to the small liberal arts college, where excellent quality, where I had been studying. And so it happened, and
it was the beginning of a love story.
That's right.
Several love stories.
Yeah.
With Lebanon as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious what your first impressions were, if you can still think of them as first impressions.
Oh, yeah.
When you arrived here, you disembark, and suddenly you're in Beirut, you know, so far away from your world, from America, from everything that is familiar to you. How unfamiliar did it look? How familiar did it look? Did you suddenly feel at home? What was really your first impression?
Well, our ship, our Dutch freighter that we traveled on, several of the students and young teachers who were coming out here, we stopped first in Casablanca. And I heard the call to prayer in Casablanca. And I think that was something that was so engaging, mystifying, of course, romantic. And so I came with a romanticized attitude to begin with, and then the country was so beautiful right away. I mean, the city was so interesting right away, the French and the Arab and the Western overlays. But I also suddenly realized this is the same sunshine, the sun, same sky, the same air, sort of, that I was used to at home, and that the world was all very similar, along with these fascinating, interesting cultural differences, which I grew more and more, I learned more and more about, and have continued to all my life, I guess. And every time I come back to Lebanon, these feelings come back, along with other feelings which we can discuss as we go along.
Yes, there will be some travel down nostalgia as well, and some difficult moments to discuss as well. I struggled a little bit to prepare for this interview because, as we've discovered when I visit, Ann and I can speak for hours. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that we covered a lot of ground in the time that we had, and also give time to the questions. So I'm going to try to take us through several periods. You come to Lebanon, and you first, I think before you meet Malcolm, you meet his mother, Elsa.
Mhm.
Tell us about Elsa Kerr.
Well, first of all, I met my 4 roommates.
Roommates, yes, of
They're
course.
2 Palestinians, from actually refugees from Haifa in 1948. So immediately I began to learn about that crisis, the Nakba, and the fleeing of people from Palestine. So that became a huge impression.
Was that something that you were aware of back in California, or not yet?
We were given books to read. This was a church-sponsored program, Presbyterian Church, and that was the time in the mid-century of international outreach and awareness. The United Nations had been formed, and there were different organizations, universities promoting international study, and I was one of I wasn't alone at all. There were lots of us going abroad. So we were given books, and I can almost remember the name of the book about the Arab-Israeli situation. So yes, we were there. And the Dean of Women.
Elsa. So she was the Dean of Women.
The Dean of Women.
Elsa Kerr.
Yeah, Elsa Kerr. So I was taken by one of my roommates the very first day to come down to the campus, and we went into the Dean of Women's office, and we were introduced, and my mother-in-law to-be stood up, and she was almost 6 feet tall, and hence my children are tall. But she was a very, very dignified, a little bit imposing woman of wisdom, I could tell right away, and lots of history about the university, which she told me about. But my acquaintance with her continued, obviously, while I was here.
What brought her to Lebanon?
Okay. Malcolm's parents went to Turkey with the Near East Relief in 1919, right after World War I, to work with the Near East Relief. So they had met there. My mother-in-law had gone independently as a woman of 1919, that era, out to Turkey to study Turkish in order to go work with the Near East Relief. And I'm always amazed when I think about her, when we talk about modern women doing amazing things. But she got on a boat and sailed to Istanbul and learned Turkish, and then got on another voyage or train or something, and went to Eastern Turkey. Was picked up in Aleppo by a young man who worked for the Near East Relief named Stanley Kerr. And that was, they went then to work in Marash, Turkey, for several years. And then they started orphanages along the Lebanese coast that they actually were closed by malaria and moved up to the mountains. And then I should tell you this, so Byron Dodge, whose name you must know, was working also with the Near East Relief, and he then came to work. Actually, his first job at AUB, this is a little known fact, I think, was to be the manager of West Hall. Yeah, and of course, eventually he became the 3rd president of AUB, and he married Howard Bliss's daughter, Mary. So they're like the 4 Orthodox caliphs, Daniel Bliss, Howard Bliss, David Dodge, and then Stephen Penrose was very much in the same mode. Those were the first 4 presidents of AUB, and whose model has been followed by such people as our current president. We're really lucky. So that's.
And so you meet Elsa, and there's clearly a meeting of the minds there. 2 women who left America to get on a ship and come to the Middle East. Tell us a little bit more about that relationship and how you then met Malcolm, and at what point did you decide that this was the man for you, and how did your parents react? Because not only did they send you all the way to Lebanon, but then you come with this news that you've met someone in Beirut.
Well, they couldn't say much. They were so far away. It was quite a bit later that I actually sent them the news that this was going to be a lasting relationship. And they were terrific. They had sort of done the same thing with my mother's parents back in Missouri when she went to Nova Scotia and studied and met my father. So this is how I interpret it now. I should have asked them. I wish I'd asked them. But Elsa and I think she sort of went home and told her son about me. And she brought him to a tea dance at the women's hostel before the dorms were built, which she initiated, by the way, down on the lower campus. She initiated the building of those 3 dorms down there. Anyway, she at the women's hostel, there was a tea dance on a Sunday afternoon. Probably you've never heard of tea dances, anybody under 50. But it was lovely, and she brought Malcolm along because we needed dancing partners. So that's sort of how it began. And then we were taking Zane's Ottoman history class together. And that was memorable. And Malcolm knew everything and I knew nothing. And we went to the milk bar after class.
What is the milk bar, for those who don't know?
Yeah, we haven't seen it yet. We're going to see it tomorrow, where it is now. We had recorded in the milk bar and doing homework on Ottoman history. His essentially teaching me. That was, Ottoman history became very romantic.
Where were you actually married? That I don't know. In Beirut or back in the US?
Engaged, so we did in those days. Here
in Beirut.
I still have the ring.
And then where did you?
We were married in California.
So I want to go down the nostalgia route just a little bit and get your impressions of Lebanon as you come here in '54. You marry Malcolm. You start a family. You have 4 children, 3 of whom are born in Beirut.
Yes, yeah. At AUH.
At AUH. And you went for summers to Ainab. You went to the beach at what we call Saint Balèche. The beach is just south of the airport, Saint Michel. Give us your impressions of life in Lebanon at the time.
Yeah.
What we call the golden age. And I don't want to be too nostalgic or too very-eyed, but what were your impressions of life then?
I was just barely 20, very young, didn't know much about the rest of the world. So my impressions then were that of a very young, impressionable young woman. And I could go into a little bit later, that I've noticed, I learned that over the years, each time I come back still, I've changed, I've grown, matured, hopefully, and Lebanon and Beirut have changed. AUB has this continuity. I mean, it does change as it should, but there's something so solid about AUB, and I think it's why we all feel so committed to it. And we each have our own AUB story. Mine is just mine. We each have, everybody here that has its own AUB story. But how was Beirut was lovely. It was still really probably simpler, and when the golden age was referred to, maybe it's a little bit later. But I loved it in the 50s. There was still, what I heard out the window at night was the pounding of stones to build new houses, not cement. There were still stone houses. So that Lebanon was still somewhat similar to what my husband remembered or Albert Harani remembered before the war, World War II.
And did your parents come and visit you here?
No, people didn't travel then the way they do now. It was too expensive, and far, yeah. But my sister did come at the end of the year. Yeah, that was
After the end of your first year
the
at
end of-
AUB,
Yeah.
she came to visit, and you traveled back home together.
That's right. And we traveled around Lebanon together with Malcolm. It was fun.
You had your kids, some of them grow up for a few years in Lebanon. I remember when we were at my place a few days ago, you pointed to the school across the street and you said, oh, Susie went there.
That's right.
The
Franciscan
in Badaro.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So we went home at the end of my junior year, and then we came back for Malcolm's first teaching job right out of graduate school. And that's when we had our first two children. And then another, AUH is a great place to have babies. There's probably a lot of you in the audience who've done that. Yeah. So, and then we could have household help, which we couldn't have at home. In those days, it was really too expensive. But anyway, we come back then, we came again on a sabbatical from UCLA, and my son Steve was born, my third child, that year. And the last one.
Lebanon really became part of your life together with Malcolm.
Yeah.
And the Middle East generally, because you also spent some time in Cairo.
That's right, that's right.
And then if we fast forward a little bit to 1982, Malcolm is a renowned scholar of the Middle East, and we'll talk about his legacy in a moment. He's a renowned scholar of the Middle East. He's been teaching at AUB, at AUC, at UCLA. He's published very famous books, including The Arab Cold War, which remains so incredibly prescient. Yeah, exactly. That's the word, and which I got my own copy, and I love that story, which I was telling you because a friend of mine was traveling around Greece and saw a copy, edition 1973 or something, and got it for me. And then there have been new editions. In 1982, Malcolm becomes president of the American University of Beirut. And 1982, of course, as you all know, is a seminal year in Lebanon. It is the year of the Israeli invasion and siege of Beirut, the Israeli invasion of Lebanon and siege of Beirut. Malcolm becomes president just before that actually happens. But Lebanon is already at war. It has been at war since 1975. And yet, you all decide to go for it. It is a dream job. It is the culmination of a career, or the next big step in a career, because he was still young. What was going through your mind and his mind in terms of your dedication to AUB, that you think we will go there, even though this is a country at war? It requires dedication, love for Lebanon and for AUB.
What was going through our minds? I think just simply wanting to be here. Malcolm was the right person for the right place. It turned out to be the wrong time. But I think at that moment, there had been the shuttle diplomacy back and forth. Kissinger was involved. And we thought there was going to be a break in the war. We wanted to think there was. So we sort of wished that it would happen, and thought we could help with rebuilding AUB after 7 years of war. And so,
because it does come at that moment where there might be, the shuttle diplomacy was with Philip Habib and George Shultz. Yeah. And well, he was still in the background.
Yeah.
But there was this moment where people thought that perhaps Lebanon was turning a corner. And I remember from reading also in your book that when Malcolm came, there was a sense that the Israeli invasion, the departure of the PLO was maybe a turning point for Lebanon, and as you said, could be potentially a moment to rebuild.
Mhm.
And so that was driving him and you when.
Yeah, and I think you sort of believe what you want to believe, and if you feel you're sort of meant to do something, and many people thought we were very foolish and told us in so many words. My parents never said that, which is really amazing.
Your parents didn't say, you shouldn't go to a country at war.
Yeah, sometimes actually my father let it out, but I mean, imagine, now I think of myself as a parent and having my children going off to a war-torn country. Yeah, but anyway, that we did it,
and then you joined, because the invasion happened, you decided to wait off on joining him in Beirut.
well, it was
correct?
mainly because I had my two younger children finishing important years of school. My son Steve was finishing high school and his basketball career was looming, and he needed to be in the public school in the US for that to happen. And then my youngest son was a senior in junior high school, so it was important for him to finish there. Yeah.
And then you joined in the fall of 1983.
August 83. Yeah.
Yeah, with Steve, sorry, Steve came for a few weeks.
Steve came for a while with us. Yeah. We had the summer in Marco's house. It was lovely.
And I remember when I was at your house in California, which we'll talk about as well, there is a remarkable similar feel to the view, to the sense, to the trees, the eucalyptus trees. You planted a cedar outside your house. How did you feel coming to Martin House with your son? I remember also a friend or reporter rather interviewed you before you came to Beirut and asked you, how do you feel about it? And you said, as you've been saying, that it was about feeling useful and helping AUB and contributing, but that people around you didn't necessarily understand why you were going to Beirut.
That's right. And after Malcolm's death, one of the main motives in writing the book was so that generations to follow us would understand our motivation. And I don't know if that's conveyed or not, but and coming back even now, this is actually 72 years later, and all these in-between visits, it's the sense of walking on this campus is renewed. The feeling this is just a unique place.
Because you never turned your back on Lebanon, even after Malcolm was assassinated, which is really incredible. Some people would have slammed the door on the country and said, I can never come back here. But you returned. Tell us a little bit, and I want to come back. I will come back briefly to that fateful moment on January 18th. But since we're here and talking about your relationship with Lebanon and AUB, tell us a little bit about how you were able to maintain a loving connection with a country that took so much away from you.
Because it was not my friends who killed Malcolm. It was not AUB. I mean, it was, Lebanon has always had this mixed kind of, in the Bible, I was looking for a title for my book, and Song of Solomon actually, Come With Me from Lebanon actually comes from Song of Solomon. And I was going through the concordance to look for the title. And there was so much about the contrast of Lebanon, the light and the darkness, the ups, the heights and the lows. And it seemed like that was very descriptive of the way Lebanon has always been. And it was the light we saw. And everything has two sides. But anyway, AUB was AUB. And also I have to say quickly, it was partly the history. My parents-in-law, the Dodge family, many other families of that era whom we were standing on the shoulders of, and it was such a history, an impressive history that we were part of now.
Was it also a way of staying connected to what Malcolm loved? Because when you left AUB after the assassination, you didn't go back to the US.
Right.
You went to Cairo. Was it to sort of stay close to an environment that reminded you of Malcolm, that you felt familiar with, that could embrace you, and that could embrace you without asking too many questions, because it was sort of the region kind of understood how and why these things happened, whereas in the US it would have been more difficult to explain constantly.
That's you put your finger on something. But also I have my own relationship with the Middle East. It's not just Malcolm. I lived with these four wonderful women, and I had many friends in the women's hostel. At the 50th anniversary of our meeting, that was in 2004, already 26 years ago, I went back and interviewed them all to try and write another book about the resilience of these women. And people in America knew so little about Arab women. They had an image from the stereotypes in the newspaper, and it bothered me a lot, and I wanted to portray this.
You have maintained your connections and your friendships with, I think, every single person that you have met in Beirut, and testament to that is, all of you here tonight, but also all the visits you're making while you're in Beirut, and is here filming a documentary about her life with a fantastic crew, and she also brought along some friends from Santa Monica. So it's been, they're right here in the front row, in the second row. And hi Colleen, hi Rob.
They'll tell the story there.
Yeah, so it's been as you said, a relationship with Lebanon that you've built, that you've maintained, and every time you come, Lebanon redefines you, and you revise also your impressions of Lebanon. And now you've met me, and we've had our relationship around Lebanon and around the legacy of Malcolm. Now you're seeing Lebanon again through the eyes of your friends from Santa Monica. How have you redefined Lebanon, or have you redefined Lebanon, and what does it represent for you today?
You mean in the 2 days since I arrived? 3 days?
No, over the 72 years. And where does it stand today?
Well,
or how are you seeing it through Rob and
Colleen's eyes? Well, I want to extend the companionship to my former student who is sitting in the back row. Yes, there's a wonderful young woman who was my student from years ago at UCLA in a class I taught called Perceptions of the U.S. Abroad, Discussions with Visiting Scholars. And she came to me almost 2 years ago and said she had become a documentary filmmaker and wanted to do a film about the kind of things I've done in the Middle East and internationally. And I've run the Fulbright Visiting Scholar Program at UCLA for cultural enrichment for the last many years, 3 or 4 years or something. And so I said, that would be great if we could include the stories of these women and the resilience of these women whom I know. And so that's kind of started it all. And that's what we're doing now. And it's every day, the artists in the crowd, my artist friends, when I compare notes with them, they say, yes, when you're engaged in a project like this, it takes shape as you go along. And I think when we get back, especially when we see the results of this, it will grow in new directions, which would be wonderful to discover.
I want to talk a little bit about your teaching at UCLA, because Anne still teaches graduate seminars to this day. Freshmen, sorry. Not this term, because you knew that this trip was coming up. But I want to go briefly back, if I may, to Malcolm's assassination, which is a moment that is very charged and very difficult for you, for the family, also for some of the people who are in the audience today who remember that day. And you write in your diary and then in your book, it all about that moment. It all came to an end today. Some things came to an end, of course. His legacy, though, lives on. And you were able also to continue with incredible ability to overcome adversity. But how did you get yourself going again with 4 children? And then I'll ask you about Malcolm's legacy, because that legacy also goes on.
Right. Well, I imagine everyone in this room has experienced tragedy through the war or life. And so we all deal with tragedy in different ways. And my 4 children all dealt with it in different ways. But, and I won't go into all that, but my way was to kind of work harder at this mission of internationalism and understanding and trying to get across how we need to learn about each other. And when our government starts wars in Iraq and doesn't know anything about Iraq, you know, things like that, it's just mind-boggling. And so I just felt a very strong urge to do that. And so I've been able to teach these seminars to freshmen at UCLA. I teach one class called U.S. Values versus U.S. Interests in Greater Middle East Diplomacy. UCLA has a lot of activists, and you've probably read about their demonstrations, and I went to try and learn about what when they hear Gaza, you just don't go out and say and demonstrate without knowing something of the background of all sides. So that was a motivation.
You started teaching these seminars after 9/11. That was something that was started by UCLA. I remember it was part of an initiative called Finding the Light, as you told me. You've been teaching them so since 2001 or 2002. How has it changed over time, teaching these seminars? What do you like about teaching it? I think we have a bit of an idea, but also how has it changed as American foreign policy changes, as your perspective possibly changes, or as students change?
Teaching today at UCLA is a delight, because these students are taking this as an elective. They're top students. They're there because they want to be, and I'm there because I want to be. It's really intrinsic learning, the best kind of education. They're not being forced to read something they don't want to read. And I keep it pretty light because it's an elective. It's only 1 unit, pass fail. It's a pleasure, and they enjoy it and respond. So it's not like teaching a required English course where kids have to pass the TOEFL.
But you get a lot of very interesting scholars, Fulbright scholars also, who
To come and speak. That's in the other class, Perceptions of the U.S. Abroad, discussions with visiting Fulbright scholars. So it's an opportunity to really reach students, and students respond. It's fully enrolled.
I want to start wrapping up, and so if you have questions, we have microphones that will come to you in a moment. But I want to ask a couple more questions about Malcolm and his legacy, because as I said, a lot came to an end that day, but a lot also continues with his books, the scholarships that you've set up in his name, the Malcolm Kerr Center at the Carnegie Endowment, and so on. So how do you think of Malcolm's legacy, and how does it stand today in the world that we live in today in the Middle East? Because I've spent a lot of time thinking about that and writing about it in my book, and I found that a lot of Malcolm's writing and articles were incredibly prescient, not just the Arab Cold War, but on a lot of the different issues, including the Palestine issue. So what does it represent for you today?
You mean the work that we've done?
And his words and his body of work and his positions.
Yeah. I think he was pretty smart. He was pretty real wise. But I think my children and I have really done a good job of carrying on his legacy. You all know about the basketball son, Steve, and he was shooting baskets like crazy to deal with his grief. My daughter Susie in England began working in local politics. She felt that she needed to be involved. My son John is very frustrated with the American government. He has been teaching at Michigan State University in international agricultural economics and sustainability. He's done a good job there. And my youngest son Andrew went to Cairo American College with me while I was teaching at AUC. That's that first 5 years after Malcolm's death. And he was the disc jockey on Saturday nights at the dances. He was young. He was only 15.
But he worked for a few years, briefly, as a young staffer at the White House.
Right. And he was the one who, do you want to go into all this?
No, not necessarily.
We can politics really quickly? Okay.
Sure, yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, it was my son Andrew, right out of college, went to work as a very young intern for the National Security Council and was tasked with looking up something for the Reagan era. And it was 1982, or sorry, 1984. And so naturally he had an opportunity to look at what was going on in January 1984. And he found this transcript of a conversation between Hezbollah and Bekaa and Damascus, and claiming to have accomplished this deed of killing Ann Kerr. And so that began another saga, another part of our story, which was to eventually have a trial for state-sponsored terrorism against the Iranian government. And that happened over time, took time. We all attended, everyone gave testimony. There were no Iranians present, but it was a time that meant to my youngest son, who was here with me, of course, a time when he had some satisfaction of accountability, even though there wasn't a guilty party named. It was still very satisfying to him. And the rest of us weren't so sure about wanting to do this trial, but we wanted to do it for Andrew, and it was certainly important.
Your other son, Steve, also is very vocal and speaks out today as a football.
Basketball.
Oh my God. That's keyword for this. Basketball coach. And he speaks out a lot about current positions that the President of the United States takes today.
I'm very proud of him. And as my son John said, when Steve started being a speaker on social issues, he said, Steve has joined the family business.
Because he wasn't interested in politics.
Well, not per se, but he was the least informed about the family history in the Middle East. And so it's funny because he gets the most glory now. And it's my other kids who deserve it. I always have to.
I want to end with a question that I have pondered a lot, that I know my friends have asked me a lot, is at the age of 91, you're still teaching, you still travel. You've overcome a lot of adversity in your life, not just losing your husband, but also more recently, Ann's wonderful family house with Malcolm and the family burnt down in California. You're doing up your new apartment in Santa Monica now while living with friends. You're here doing a documentary.
Took care of
you're going onwards to Cairo. And I have to say, sometimes when I visit with Ann, after a few days, I'm exhausted, and she's still making all these plans for things to do. So what is your secret sauce?
I know, we've discussed this before, and I was supposed to say something that would be encouraging to everybody.
What?
No, I want to say, I guess you start with a really wonderful family, growing up in a wonderful family, close, caring family, and that's a big luck. But I think in thinking about your question, I think moving forward and not backwards. And, you know, we don't, nostalgia is wonderful, and I love nostalgia and indulging in it a lot, but to move forward and what you're going to do, that's how you get through tragedy, as everybody knows. You just put the next step forward. And the dear people who've taken care of me are the same. I mean, imagine, I said, well, come along. And they said, right away, they want to come along. And they dealt with tragedy in their family recently. And you just put the next foot forward and respect, of course, the loss and keep a place in the loss. You're inside of you, there's always that place for the loss. But putting one foot forward, I guess. Quick answer.
And community?
Oh,
Naps.
yes. Lots of friends.
Lots of friends of all ages. I think that is my observation.
That's right. Very, very lucky to be.
If you have any questions, please raise your hand. Do we have microphones? I see Makram.
Good evening, Ann. I am Makram Rabah. I don't know if you remember me.
Makram?
I am a historian. I'm an assistant professor of history at UB and a pupil of Kamal Salibi. So, working on the archives and on the archive of President Kerr, I came across a document where he wasn't able to publish a very nice op-ed explaining to the Americans what was happening at UB. This was rejected by the New York Times, which was later published in the Monday morning. My question is, someone like Malcolm Kerr was perceived by the American administration at the time as being too native or an Arabist, which were purged out of US politics for a long time. So why would someone like Malcolm, who was too Arab or too pro-Palestinian, be killed at that particular moment in time by people who were anti-American? So what was he trying to do, or how was he trying to address the American public, so to speak? And why do you think at that particular moment in time, he was gunned down by the same people who claimed to be with the Palestinian cause or with the Arab cause? What was going through the mind of Malcolm when he was trying to win over?
We do know, I know that was a prevalent, I'm not sure I heard your question completely. I'll give an answer and you can tell me what you want. At the time of Malcolm's death, it was a very common theme in this community that it had something to do with Arab and Israeli situation. It was much more to do with Hezbollah.
In what sense?
That they're responsible. We know that.
Okay, but why do you think that in that particular moment in time, someone who basically doesn't repeat what Hezbollah says, basically he's trying to warn about the dangers of this so-called pro-Israeli policy that the Reagan administration was taking in the area? Why was?
No, it didn't have. I'm sorry.
Could you elaborate on? Could you tell us more about that?
Say that again.
Could you tell us more about why do you think that Hezbollah at that particular moment in time would kill someone who is a great friend of the Arabs and the only person speaking on behalf of them?
That's the question we, of course, want to know. But I would say our general belief is that Hezbollah did not want the liberal, open-minded ideas that AUB represented. And that's my standard answer, and I believe it. Okay?
Thank you very much.
It was, at the time, Kamal Salibi also said that, why would anyone kill Malcolm Kerr? Because he was born in Beirut, spoke Arabic, and he was the best kind of American to come to the Middle East. But just to sort of put it in context, at the time, there were a lot of different theories also, and about who could have done it, and it was never really ascertained until much later. And as Anne said, there was no one in the dock during the trial against Iran. Any other questions? Ziad, sorry.
Hello, my name is Ziad Khalil. I don't have a question. I was here, a senior student at the business school on that Wednesday morning, on the 18th of January, 1984. And I still remember how the campus was before the assassination and after that dreadful event. I just want to thank you for your presence and for gracing us and gracing AUB. Your presence amongst us here is really more than any monument could ever give us.
Are there any questions on this side before we move the microphones? Oh, we have a microphone over here.
Mr. Kerr, do you think that one day your children might come to visit Lebanon and spend a few days in it, or it is very harsh for them to remember the assassination?
No, they all would come here. They all would come here. My children who have children want to bring their children here. And I just sent,
I think the only one, so John and Susie have come.
John and Susie have
Right.
finally, yeah.
Andrew? No.
Andrew, no.
And Steve
Yeah,
also.
he's already said he's coming next year, and Steve is coming soon when he can get a break in his season. That they want to bring their children to know this place. And so I want them, of course, to concentrate on AUB, because sometimes it's discouraging out on the streets, which aren't very easy to walk through, or the traffic, or, yeah.
Maybe Steve and John will not remember the incident, but definitely Andrew would not come because he lived it.
And
Yeah, everyone had a different experience of that moment. Thank you so much. We have a question here in the front row.
And I'm a UC Davis alumni. And I take pride in starting at AUB and continuing at UC Davis. And I saw only 2 days ago Kim's testimonial or advocacy at CNN on what is happening in the Middle East. Do you, from your perspective, see a schism, Republican, Democratic, between what we could be doing to our joint efforts between different cultures and different maybe academia and explaining what things are unfolding and how they unfolded with time? Sorry. Or is it just the ability to present a course on what it takes to move forward and getting people to understand one another and to get peace in this part of the world, particularly that today is the day where these new initiatives of a greater peace in the Middle East is being unfolded in the US.
It's also the day where, you know, it's all talk about war against Iran, so I'm not sure about this. We have the largest concentration of military hardware in the Middle East, American military hardware since the Iraq war. I'm just giving Anne a bit of time to get over her cough. But he wants your impressions and your understanding of how much we can contribute to understanding between different countries, particularly at this time, right? Because, you know, Steve tries to do that on domestic politics. You know, he speaks out on issues. It's about standing up for what is right, you know, staying true to your integrity. And that's what you do as well. He does it on domestic issues, whether it's gun violence, whether it's ICE raids, and you do it on issues of understanding between America and the Middle East.
Yeah. And I work in the International Institute at UCLA. The Fulbright program is part of that. We work alongside people doing international work, and it's really inspiring. But we all need to do our part. And one thing is to raise good kids, good families, good citizens, you know? And so when they get to high positions, they don't fall into corruption or, you know what I mean?
Question on this side. And we'll take one or two more. If you want to raise your hand, I'll come to you after this.
And it's so lovely to see you in Beirut. You feel so at home here. And I just want to say that in a moment where everybody feels so divided, the world was very small even back in 1954. So even, I remember last November when we discussed the Gaza issue, Kim lectured on Syria, and then soon after you lost your home. And yet here you are sharing with us your story of loss and overcoming. And I just wanted to ask to kind of second some of the discussion, because I was 7 that day, January 18. I was at IC. My dad's office was a few doors down from Malcolm Kerr's, and he ran over to get me out of school, his face fallen. And I just want to ask, kind of going back to what values they were trying to kill as well. This value of academia. My father was a professor in the agriculture school. Agriculture had a certain stance at AUP back then. Development had a certain stance. The history department was, so sort of all the liberal arts as well, kind of this philosophy that kind of was trying to be destroyed in this culture of fear, and how you've really, really shown us that that's just not valuable.
Thank you. These values, yes, we talked about them. And I think the Z, you would add to that.
We'll get you a mic in a moment, but since the mic is on that side, did you want to add something to what Amira just said, or did you want to react some more? And then we'll have one more question on the side there, the lady with the white shirt, and then we'll come to Nazim.
I agree with you completely. I don't absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for being here at this time.
Go ahead.
Mrs. Kerr, it's not a question. You said that everybody has an AUB story. My AUB story is linked to Mr. Kerr. It changed the course of my path completely. AUB was the most beautiful campus in the world. And we were the happiest kids in the world.
Despite the war.
Despite the war. In which campus in the world you swim and you go to the Green Oval and you walk West Hall where all the boys are looking at you? It was heaven. And the postal office where you used to have letters, love letters, unlike Facebook. I have to tell you that the assassination of Mr. Kerr happened extremely close to me. You said you were in, I was in that building. And it changed the course of my life to a point where I left the country, moved to Canada. What was supposed to be 3 years is 40 years now. Not Halifax, not Nova Scotia, Montreal. And I want to thank you because I did not hate Beirut or Lebanon or the violence, and you did not either. Our love for Lebanon has remained. I don't know if we can forget or forgive, but you still love Lebanon and you come back to Lebanon. And this is the biggest gift you can give us, especially as an American and a Canadian. So thank you, that's all.
It's the biggest gift that you can give us.
Yes, and my name is Lamia Rantous, and my father was at the UB. His dorms was near the club at the ex-West Hall, College Hall, avant qu'il soit détruit. So thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Lamia. Nazir, did you have a question? Could we get? And I think this is, there's one more in the back. Okay, so we'll do one last question with Nazir and the question in the back as well. Or the microphone is first going there, sorry. But if we could get the microphone ready for the next question, go ahead, and then if we can get the microphone ready on the first row. Go ahead, please.
Good evening. My name is Hassan, I'm right here. I'm a graduate of the School of Business in AUB. I just want to come close here to Ziad, who's like a father figure to me. I actually flew from Kuwait to say, on behalf of myself and my mother, thank you very much, because you paid for my AUB education. We didn't have any money to finance. I was 17 or 18, and we didn't really have any money to finance this education. I'm today the Chief Executive Officer of a publicly listed company. So if you ever wondered where your generosity and kindness, how far it went, I'm just a small example right here.
I'm sorry, the sound in the microphone is a bit muffled in my 91-year-old ears. So if I'm not hearing every word for you, I apologize. But I thank you. I heard the audience response. And Naziz's right here. I have to say, Naziz Zidane was Malcolm's colleague at AUB at the time.
Yes, well, I had the honor and privilege to work with Malcolm since the first day he arrived until that tragic moment. And I almost got killed with him. There were some details with that. I'm writing my memories now. And so there are some details. As the gentleman asked, I remember accompanying Malcolm to both the medical gate and the IC gate to keep the Israelis from entering the campus. So this man is a great loss, I think. We all miss this man, not AUB, academia, but I think Lebanon does, because this man was a real pillar of education and humanity.
Thanks, Naziz. Thank you.
Thank you.
You did important
So
work
much.
together. You did important work together.
And I want to, do you want to say anything else?
Well, I just wanted to hear more from you. This has been a pleasure for me to reminisce like this. And it's a story that is very close to my heart. And I don't get a chance to talk to an audience who understands so well that often. So thank you. But Kim is a person I look up to immensely. And whenever I can hear what she's thinking about world events, I want to listen. And I thought we'd hear more tonight, but
It's all about you.
tonight
is all about you.
Nostalgia. This is real nostalgia.
And Malcolm. But I think, this conversation was incredibly inspiring. I think you can tell from the audience that there is great admiration and gratitude for what you and Malcolm stand for and stood for and still stand for. And I want to thank all your friends who came and who brought us back in time. But also, as you said, it's about putting a foot in front of the other every day, continuing to inspire young generations with the writings, raising good families, as Anne said, in the hope that we can perhaps find better understanding between countries. And I want to thank you for your friendship, for your time here on stage. This is the first time that Anne has an event like this in Lebanon, aside from book talks that she's held. And I want to remind people about your secret sauce, as I've observed it, which is really, putting this foot in front of the other every day, looking forward to the next project, to the next contribution, have a nap, have a drink if you drink. Be surrounded by community of all ages, and always look forward. Thank you so much, Ann Kerr.
See you, eh? Have a nice day. Take care. Alright? Yeah. شرفنا. يلا nice meeting. Alright. Take care.